Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing marvelously well. In this episode, we're going to take a look at, let's wait for the word, Antares Auto-Tune Unlimited. What? Warfare! We're interested in doing this because we're not going to concentrate at all on any kind of tuning function. At least I'm not, because there are tons of little tools in here. And if you've ever watched my vocal mixing videos, you'll know that I like to mess things up. I put low octaves under vocals. I put distortion. I put whisper techniques. I do multiple delays that are all detuned. I use the vocal thickening trick with an H3000. I do all kinds of weirdness, and I use it really lightly in the background to make vocals sound a little bit more interesting, sometimes a lot more interesting. So when they said, would you like to try this out and do a giveaway? I was like, let me see what it is. I saw what it was. I saw that there was some fun that could be had. And then I reached out to some good friends of ours. Adam Steele, who of course is a Reaper user and a good friend of ours, is also contributing to this video. So you're going to see Adam use it in Reaper. Also, our very good friend, Cato Zane, who is a wonderful recording engineer in San Diego. And she will be demonstrating it in Pro Tools, but with her perspective. And last, but definitely no means least, the rather wonderful Mr. Matt Weiss. And if you know Matt, of course, Matt is a very accomplished producer and engineer and mixer of hip-hop and R&B and pop and rap and all kinds of other stuff. He's actually going to take an Akon track and demonstrate the things that he does. So I think a pretty darn good comprehensive view from 4 different people. So why don't we start with me? Let us put on our headphones, and I do get asked all the time. They're blue headphones. They're called the Mix-Fi, isn't that correct? Yeah, these are the Mix-Fi. Every single member of our team owns a pair of these because we all want to hear the same thing. We like them because they're very, very comfortable, and they have an extended low end, so you can mix low end really nicely on them. Okay, sorry, just had to get that out of the way. Oh, and don't forget, you can win one of 16 copies of this. Yes, 16 copies. There's going to be 1 3-year license, 5 2-year licenses, and 10 1-year licenses. So whatever happens, you've got 16 chances of at least getting this for free for a year. All right, here's a vocal by our good friend, Lily Lewis.
Night falls like a soldier, can't sleep, thoughts are bleeding, lost my heartbeat.
Cool. Let's hear it in the track.
Night falls like a soldier, can't sleep, thoughts are bleeding, lost.
Sounds cool. Sounds like it needs some compression. Sounds like it needs some excitement and some interest. She's very dynamic, and this was barely compressed at all when printed. But let's have some fun with it. So this first plugin that we've got up here is the Vocal Impact Enhancer, which I think this needs because it's super dynamic. So let's see what it does.
Night falls like a soldier, can't sleep.
First thing I did is just crank up the gain. Now let's try the impact.
Night falls like a soldier, can't sleep, thoughts are bleeding, lost my heartbeat, left my love with the sun, left me feeling so numb, I can't move, can't change a thing, I've been.
Bypass it so you can hear it.
Night falls like a soldier, can't sleep.
Bring it back on.
Night falls like a soldier, can't sleep, thoughts are bleeding.
Bring the impact down. It's obviously changing the level, but also it's changing the level because a lot of the quiet stuff is now significantly louder. It's here in the track, which is the only way to listen.
Night falls like a soldier, can't sleep, thoughts are bleeding, lost my heartbeat, left my love with the sun.
Bypass.
Night falls like a
Put it back on.
soldier, can't sleep, thoughts are bleeding, lost my heartbeat, left my love with the sun, left me feeling so numb.
Interesting. It's kind of cool. It's definitely bringing a bit of saturation into it as well. You know, she was singing through, this one is a tube, this is my U47, which of course is a valve or a tube microphone. And it was going through a BAE 1028 and definitely pushing the BAE so when she sang loud, it crunched a little bit. But even though the song is poppy, it's still got a rock feel. So I have no problem with that kind of additional saturation that is getting exaggerated by this plugin. Now, if you want something super, super clean, this probably isn't the plugin for you. But if you want something that's going to make it a little dirtier, a little bit more in your face, this is fun.
Life falls like a soldier, can't sleep, thoughts are bleeding, lost my heartbeat, left my love.
Okay. Dumb. Does the job straight away. All right, this is the one I really wanted to try out because this is a digital talk box. So this looks like a lot of fun to me. I'm just having a really quick look at this. EQ, envelope format. I mean, I should be able to change the pitch of the vocal, noise generation. This is sort of the things that I do anyway. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a separate channel for this. So now I've got it on a separate auxiliary. Let's just take a chunk of the vocal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to pre-fade so we can mute the output and just listen to the effect.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half of
Oh, I see. Here's the tracking.
Up inside before I rip up. I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up.
Well, we can definitely move into horror movie aspects.
My half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up.
It's terrifying.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up.
EQ here.
Someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up.
All right, that's absolutely insane. All right, I'm going to blend it with the real vocal.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up.
Take the EQ off.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up. I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up. I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up. I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart.
All joking aside, I'll probably use it like this subtly. Absolutely insane soloed. I'll bring it down even more.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart.
Let's put the other effect on that I liked.
Stitch me up inside before I rip up. I'm gonna need someone.
Turn them both off.
To fix my half a heart. Stitch me up inside before I rip up.
Back on.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart. Stitch me up inside before I rip up.
It's kind of insanity that I like. So the vocal impact enhancer in your arsenal, you know, I think there's a couple of plugins I like the Waves AVOX, which really adds some girth there and does a similar thing to this. This tends to be not as low middly, not as bulky down there. So kind of like it. A good alternative for grabbing it and bringing it forward. And I like anything that adds noise and interest because vocals, especially in modern pop music, can be so clean and so perfect, especially when I'm given stuff that has been ridiculously tuned and timed, that it ends up sounding like a bad keyboard line. So having things to then mess it up is a nice thing to have. So now we have the Extreme Vocal Designer. I don't know, let's have some fun with it.
I'm gonna need
Someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside.
It's a good, simple tracking for the low octave. So I'm going to do this. I mean, I use this all the time. It immediately works. So I'm putting it over here.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up.
I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up.
Let's bring it
I'm
down.
gonna need someone to fix my half
Now with the
a
noise.
heart and stitch me up inside before I rip up. I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me.
Okay, from the top of the chorus, see what we have now on the vocals.
You know who you are. I'm gonna need someone to fix my half a heart and stitch me up inside before I
Solos.
rip apart. I wonder where I'd be
Totally
if
wrong.
I had you from the
All together.
start. Really need someone. All that he left was half a heart. Will I make it with half a heart? How can I lay with half a heart?
So, those are vocal tricks that I do using the hardware and some other plugins. And this is now me using it from Antares vocal bundle. So coming up, we have Adam focusing on the harmony engine, Cato focusing on the mic mod, and Matt Weiss is going to do some, dare I say it, oh no, leave an angry comment below, tuning.
Hey Warren, thanks for having me. Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here, WeissAdvice.com, here on behalf of Produce Like a Pro, and I want to show you how I use Auto-Tune in my process when making hit records. So this record is Compatibility, it's by Ozuna and Akon, it's 1.2 million copies sold, and I want to show you what I was doing with Akon's voice here in this verse. So first of all, when I'm using Auto-Tune, if I know that the sound of the record is going to embrace Auto-Tune and make that part of its sound, I think of it the same way that I would think of guitars. When I'm recording guitars, we set up with the pedal board and the amp, and we record through that because the way the player performs is going to influence the way those effects sound, and vice versa. Auto-Tune is no exception. When the vocalist is singing, they want to be able to hear how their voice is going to modulate Auto-Tune so they can use Auto-Tune as an instrument to create tones and textures. So I really, really recommend that when you're making Auto-Tune part of the sound, you start with Auto-Tune in the monitoring chain for the vocalist. Okay, so with Akon here, typically my retune speeds are between 5 and 15, depending on exactly what we're going for. This one was 8 on this record, and I'm just gonna play some of this record down for a bit.
Yeah, do they know what I do for you? Damn near drop my whole crew for you. If you got feedback to do for you, nothing I wouldn't do for you. Remember the times when you felt so lonely. Remember the times when you trusted nobody.
So a lot of the times, the goal for many of these vocalists, and Akon no exception here, is to get that very distinct auto-tune tone, but to retain all of the human qualities that make the vocalist sound like themselves. So after I get the basic sound that we want on EFX, I'll go back in post, and I'll make EFX inactive, and I'll pull up Auto-Tune Pro, and go into Graphical Mode. In Graphical Mode, I'm going to hit pitch and time. I'm going to record in the performance. All right, and so for make notes, I'm going to set the number of notes up to 80. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to capture all of the different pitches that are being used, but around 80 is usually going to allow some of the inflections to be untouched by the little corrector windows. And that's going to be the key here. When we get the note, the body of the note, we're going to hit that retune speed of 0. So right now with everything selected, I'm hitting retune 0. But when we start going in and actually start checking the actual microscopic notes here and really fine-tuning what we're doing, anywhere where there's an inflection or a natural transition between the note, I'm going to grab that area and I'm going to pull the corrector window away from it so that Auto-Tune doesn't mess with it. So here, for example, between these notes, I'm going to leave this portion untouched. So we have the pitch locked in on the notes, but the transition is the human being. Same thing with some of the beginnings and ends of notes, these little inflections where there's these atonal pitch movements. Sometimes it's better just to leave those alone. And sometimes we'll even get these very, very specific transition notes here, like this, where we land on a note and Auto-Tune is saying we've got 2 more notes in the scale up until we get to this landing top note, but in reality, this is just a slide. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the curve tool, and I'm going to grab it from the center of the note, and I'm just going to draw it in myself, and I happen to already know that this one wants to be bowed out a little bit, so I'll pull it in with a slightly more aggravated slope right there. I don't love how I drew that. That's probably going to sound a little glitchy, but, you know, I'll give it another go, and it might sound something, it might look something a little more like that. So I've already taken the time to do that on this pass. We'll be able to compare doing it in graphical mode versus doing it on EFX. So let's check it out on EFX again real quick. Let's listen to the word yeah, the word whole, and the vibrato on the word you.
Yeah, do they know what I do for you? Damn near drop my whole crew for you. If you got feedback to do for you, nothing I wouldn't do for you.
We get a lot of glitchiness right there. Let's check it out with graphical mode.
Yeah, do they know what I do for you? Damn near drop my whole crew for you. If you got feedback to do for you, nothing I wouldn't do for you.
Same great auto-tune tone, but all of the human qualities that made Akon's performance his performance. All right, guys, I'll catch you next time.
Hey guys, it's Cato here. And you know, in this Auto-Tune bundle, there are so many really great plugins. I've been digging into it for a couple weeks now, trying to learn all the different plugins. And this whole bundle is really like a Swiss Army knife of plugins, right? Anything to do with vocal processing, they tried to think about it and put it in the suite. But what I want to focus on today might be the one plugin that kind of is a little bit different from all the rest, right? It's not necessarily vocal specific. It's probably the plugin in the bunch that is a little more different than the rest of them, in my mind at least. It doesn't have to be vocal specific. It's not necessarily vocal specific at all, anything about it, right? It doesn't even say anything about vocals up here. And all it is a mic modeling plugin. And I've really been enjoying it. The engineer side of me is really excited about the ideas and the possibilities of what we could do with this plugin. So it's really easy to use. You know, you have an input section and then you have an output section. And so in the input, you set, for example, what type of microphone you recorded with. So let's say I recorded with a 57. I can go pick that 57, right? And then I could, for example, if I want to be honest about things, I could be like, let's say we recorded about 6 inches away from the microphone. I can then go to the output and choose what type of microphone I want it to sound like. Let's say I want to make it sound like it was recorded with the Coles 4038. I wouldn't necessarily do that with vocals, especially just lead vocals like these are. But you know, I love this microphone. I love the warmth of this ribbon microphone. It's very unique in my mind compared to other microphones. And you know, I got some recently and I had to return them because one of them was broken and it was a matched pair. And I'm really sad now without them. So let's listen with and without.
So I stand in double light. So I stand in double light.
So you can hear how it really brings out that warmth, right? That ribbon warmth. And then I can also make it sound like it's closer, right? So we have this proximity value here, which it's mimicking the proximity effect, right? When you get closer to a microphone, you hear more low end. That's all it's mimicking. So let's listen to that.
So I stand in double light. So I stand in double light.
So this is really cool. I could see myself using this in a whole bunch of different ways. Like, let's say I wanted to duplicate this track and have one version regular and then one version with this on it to make it sound like maybe I had a Coles room microphone in addition to the vocal microphone. That would be one thing you could do that I could see being really fun to do. Another thing that you'll notice that I think is a pretty cool feature in this plugin is if you go and pick a microphone, for example, this one that I'm talking into here, the SM7, this one actually has a little it's not really a switch. I guess it's kind of a switch in the bottom where you can choose different options, right? So it'll actually put those options here so you can actually pretend that you're flipping the switch on the microphone. Same thing, another one that a lot of people are probably familiar with is, let's see, the C414. This one has some buttons on the actual microphone itself if you have the physical microphone. So you can pick between puller patterns, you can pick between low cut options or no EQ change, right? So it actually lets you change those options here. And then the other thing that I think is kind of cool is the tube saturation option here. So let's just listen to that.
So I stand in double light. So I stand in double light.
So it gives that nice like tube compression, distortion, warmth to it. I kind of like that. So I've been kind of excited about this plugin. I think one of the interesting things you could do with it is use it in less conventional ways, maybe not the exact way it was meant to be used, right? For example, I'm not using it the right way right now because I didn't actually record these vocals with the 57. But I also think it would be cool, for example, you could try doing something like, I have a measurement microphone. I could bust that out and record something and then apply this to it and see how that affects the sound. I think that would be a really interesting exercise. And I think I could get some really interesting tones out of it that way. So just something to think about. And, I also think this could be handy, for example, if you're doing remote work. Sometimes people will send us tracks that they recorded at home or they recorded with their own gear. And so they might not have all these amazing, wonderful microphones. They might have a very limited collection of microphones. And then, that affects what kind of tones and textures you can get out of whatever you're recording. But with this, you could try to get a little bit closer to the sound of having these, really expensive, really nice microphones that we all know and love. So, I could see it being a way to help people get closer to where they want to be without spending as much money to get there. I could see that being very handy. And now that I think about it, another reason why I think this is a really interesting plugin to feature today is the educational value here, right? So if you are learning about audio, if you're in school, you're in some kind of audio or music program, you might not have access to or have all these different types of microphones, but you can start to learn how they sound and how they differ from each other and start to become familiar with them, even without having them present with something like this. So I think that's a really great tool from an educational perspective. This would have been awesome to have when I was in college because it took me so long to figure out the differences between most of these microphones. And it was only when I'd assisted in studios for years that I even started to feel like I had a good handle on this stuff. So this could help you get a jump start on that, I would think, if you're just starting to learn this type of stuff, or if you want to learn this type of stuff. You don't have to be in school for it. Could just be interested in it, like the rest of us. I don't know. So yeah, that's the Mic Mod plugin. It's in the Auto-Tune Unlimited bundle. So if you're interested in it, go check out that bundle if you haven't tried it yet.
Hi guys, Adam Steele here, and I've been playing around with the Unlimited bundle and I've gone a little bit crazy. Without looking at this little bit on the screen here, I've got it blurred. How many vocal channels are on this? Have a listen. How many vocal channels is that? I'll tell you. 2. That's it. A main vocal and a single backing vocal. And we've used the Antares bundle here to do some very, very clever things. Let's break down firstly vocal number 1, which is the main vocal. So this has a little bit of an EQ at the start to shelve out the low end. But then we've got Auto-Tune Pro, keeping this vocal locked in to... It is chromatic scale, but it's keeping it locked down. Then we've got a compressor that's from one of the other brands, and then we've got AVOX throat, which is making this sound like a younger man kind of singing this.
Shine on through the darkness.
Now, I do need to play with that a little bit. It's a little bit funky, but I can change the model of the throat and the width.
Shine on through the darkness. Bring me to the first place.
That's getting there. And then I've got AVOX punch, which is really lifting that up in the mix. Then I've got AVOX warm, giving it a little bit of drive, and AVOX Sybil over here, which is a very nice smooth de-esser. So in the mix without the other vocals, this kind of sits. It has that thing where I'm playing around with the throat formant, but here we go.
Shine on through the darkness. Bring me to the first place.
And underneath that, that's where the fun really begins. This is the pièce de résistance. This is the harmony engine. I love this.
Shine on through the darkness. Bring me to the first place.
So I've got a MIDI track here with the chords moving, and that's being sent through with the audio being side-chained from the main vocal. And between them, that is giving me 4 levels of harmony. And then there's a choir mode at the bottom, which is like the AVOX choir plugin that's enabled on every voice with 4 voices. I could go bigger than that. You can make it sound like more and more voices. I kept that a little bit lower just to give it a bit more mid-range weight, because there is also this competing B vocal, which without all the plugins sounds a bit rubbish. Guide me home. And with Guide me home. There we go. Now the MIDI's being sent, we get a big choir. That's a second copy of Harmony Engine. That's being tuned specifically to have a bigger, more mid-focus thing without the main vocal being particularly prominent. That's got a little EQ just to take out some of the low mids and push the top there. That's one of Reaper's own. Then we've got the AVOX warm, making it warmer, Sybil taking out the ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and then a compressor at the end just to really sit that in the mix. And that sounds massive. Whether you would use it like that as the Harmony Engine in a mix or not, I mean, it's a really creative tool, but also I demoed that in 6 minutes. It took me a couple of takes to get the main vocal, then I did a backing line once on this microphone as well, so it's not exactly kind of your a studio production. I did this in my mix room, and I got this really interesting creative thing really quickly. Thanks, guys. Back to you.
So I hope you enjoyed that. Please enter to win. Thank you ever so much. Let us know, what are some of your vocal techniques? What are some of the things that you do to mess up the vocal? Not so that it's useless, but so it adds energy and excitement underneath the main vocal.